All right, here's what's coming up today. We've got InfoWars Nightly News and InfoWars Radio reporter David Knight coming in with a bunch of clips, really powerful stuff, and heartening information from the IRS hearings on Friday, where some Congress people are actually doing their jobs and saying, look, don't tell us these are mistakes. You did this on purpose. And you go around without due process taking people's bank accounts and their homes if they, quote, make mistakes. It's not mistakes. The IRS is the private collection agency for the private Federal Reserve with governmental power. It is a manifest fraud and part of the occupation of this country. That's just a fact. So that is coming up. Also, I was traumatized by this on Friday and didn't get to the meat of it, but I will today. I talked about it for almost an hour. Military says no presidential authorization needed to quell civil disturbances. Those that don't know about common sense or common history or the Constitution we're like, well, what's the big deal? Military doesn't need the president's authorization to operate domestically. I mean, what an incredible statement. But they already say our military is under NATO control. So I guess that's what Congress has been told. They, of course, control the military and the purse strings. We're in very perilous times where just bombshell things are announced, bombshell things are done, and it's put out there like it's no big deal. My father Friday texted me and he said, I'm listening to local radio, that show that attacks you whenever I listen, and they're admitting that tyranny's here and they can't believe it, and oh my gosh, they never thought it could be true. And I called my dad back and I said, yeah, but if I called in, they would make fun of me. Because that's a mantle of manliness in America, is to deny things and laugh at people that are right. And then see, folks that are even criticizing tyranny, like Piers Morgan nationally is now saying, oh, we are seeing some tyranny out of Obama. I don't like it. We're going to play a clip of that. They're doing it because the people are waking up. That's why they're doing it. But I have been in public quite a bit. I went to a music recital that my daughters were in that had about, looked like a couple thousand people at it today at the School for the Deaf, as it's called. Still has the politically incorrect name. Oh, how horrible. But my daughters are not hearing impaired. That's where they had a big auditorium and they were having it. And all 4 security guards, or I think they were police, that I ran into were avid listeners. And they said, yeah, well, I'm not going to say what they said. But the point is that that's what I encounter everywhere. At the park, at Barton Springs, at the mall, in a grocery store, in a parking lot. And again, I'm just one guy. So that's a radar sonar ping that people are waking up. And there are a lot of talk shows that have talked about tyranny before, but they're really starting to get it. So I've had my ear to the ground, and I'm noticing the biggest tipping point right at the edge of it I've ever seen. And I have to make the realization, to myself and then say it on air before I get into all this news so that people understand how powerful you are. You are the reason this radio show has been so successful. You resonating with our information, doing your own research, taking action, warning others, spreading the word about liberty and about threats to freedom. You have the power. If I can go anywhere in the world now and walk down the street and run into listeners everywhere. And if I go into a restaurant and there's a group of military and they run over and say, 40% of us are awake or half of us are awake and the others are waking up now, we're ready. And they're sophisticated and they know what's going on. What does that tell you about the New World Order? See, you feel like you're alone because you are not Ron Paul. You are not an Alex Jones. You do not get to see what's happening. And if you'll start speaking out more, and if you'll start wearing the banner of liberty more openly, you will realize the power you've got. And that if we just continue to wake up others, all our job is, I was jogging, if you can call it that, around the hike and bike trail last night at about 8 o'clock. And I was had sunglasses on, even though it was getting dark, so I'm going to be noticed, ball cap, all of it. And I probably had, let's not exaggerate, it wasn't even very crowded, maybe 15 people stop me just recognizing, I guess, the line of my face and shoulders. And I would try to stop and say, okay, hey, thank you. But they would say, 3 or 4 of them said, you made me wake up. You made me think. You made me get outside the box, stuff like that. And I would say, that's good, because I don't have all the answers. Just be more reflective, do more research, look at the world more, study things, and it'll all come clear to you. And that's really the good message that I've got to everybody out there, is that the reason they haven't trumped up charges and put me in prison, the reason they haven't killed me, is, number one, God. I know God with providence smiles upon those that stand up against overwhelming odds and evil. That's always happened in history. But also, it's because a lot of people in the system are awake and just feel powerless and don't know what to do because it's so big. But also because the more evil people in the system realize, if you go back over my compendium of work, if you cut away the fat and the gristle, and there's plenty of that there, nobody's perfect. We have a great body of work, so there's certainly some tripping and falling and stumbling in that work, but it's been done from a place of love and history and research and trying to do the best job. That's why it's been such a formidable weapon against the globalists. I'm just giving you a status report here. But the establishment, the social engineers, know when they hear this show and know when they study it. They know within the compendium, within the body of work, within the volumes, the voluminous volumes of datum, is the real essence of what's being constructed and what's being built by them. And the show itself is a think tank, because they're constantly in think tank meetings trying to gauge and control and dominate. They're not in full control. So it's hard for even their greater minds to study the larger cut and weave of this garment, because it is a patchwork, but built from a position of dominance and corruption and selfishness, built by many generations of evil, with good over many generations struggling against it. The world is not just full of evil, it's full of good. In fact, there's more good than evil. The frustration is that good is, people are like children, not even so much stupid as they are innocent and childlike, laughing and giggling and running through the world. And that's where my real frustration comes, because I don't just know the enemy's program from studying them. They brag about what they're doing. Their great downfall is that they operate as if everyone is completely lobotomized, when in truth, the public is in a near trance medical state. You can look this up. Brainwaves have lowered. IQs have lowered in the Western world. Sperm counts have lowered. Genetics have plunged. I've got a stack of news today about diabetes, cancer, everything else just shooting straight up. But there's no discussion of why is it shooting up. That's the great taboo. The discussion is how to give centralized groups involved in the eugenics depopulation program to give them all of the funding. Many anthropologists and archaeologists believe that before man even discovered the power to harness and use fire, we were involved in agrarian activities. That is, taking the seeds of plants and then replanting them to produce more. The very foundation of our modern civilization and human culture is centered around the planting and cultivation of edible plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, you name it. And the globalists have been going after gardening. They've been harassing people that have gardens in their front yards or their backyards. They've called for licenses for people to have gardens, because you can't trust prisoners in the police state America to be able to grow their own food. That's why I've come to the realization that we need to become self-sufficient. You need to be informed. You need to have the Second Amendment to protect yourself. You need to be politically active to wake up others. You need to filter your water. But you also need to plant a garden. Even if you live in an apartment, you can do this. If you live in the countryside, obviously you can do it on a grand scale. There are so many green belts in areas that humans don't even visit, nearby cities and in suburbs, where people are now more and more planting their own little private gardens and meadows and off the side of the road. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a revolutionary act to unplug from the television, to unplug from the computer and all the globalist propaganda, and to go out in your backyard or your front yard or planters at your apartment or on the roof of the building where you live and to plant a garden.
Here are some of the amazing deals at InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com. The Survival Seed Vault by My Patriot Supply features only the finest survival heirloom seeds for a robust and hardy garden, even in the toughest of times. The ARC All-in-One Seed Kit contains 70 varieties of 50,000 seeds of fruits, vegetables, medicinal, and culinary herbs. All ARC seeds are heirloom. Each type is labeled and sealed separately for ease of use and longevity. The Deluxe Emergency Seed Bank combines 3 of Emergency Seed Bank's top sellers: the Family Survival Emergency Seed Bank, the Medicinal Herb Seeds Pack, and the Culinary Herb Seeds Pack. We also have starter varieties of the deluxe seed packages for fruit, salad, salsa, peppers, and medicinal herbs and more. Go to the InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com.
A little seed can grow a huge tree that produces fruit for up to 50 years. We have the best life bombs. That's what these are. We have the best weapons against death out there at the lowest prices, waiting for you to lovingly plant them and lovingly grow them and lovingly eat them and share them with others. We will strike back against the New World Order, and this is only one more initiative in our fight against them. So please join us at InfoWarsShop.com, or you can link through at Infowars.com at the InfoWars Seed Center. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you so much for joining us. We are alive. We are conscious. We're not sleeping as the globalists just go about their business taking over the planet and trying to dumb everyone down so it's more easily managed. We believe that is a crime against humanity. Those of us that love freedom and human dignity and who are not so weirdly competitive that we seek to destroy our fellow humans, we wish to see humans empowered to the greatest level possible in our destiny, not destroyed. And just to finish up, the reason I was getting into the awakening that's happening is that there is hope. And if you will face the tyranny, then we have a chance to recognize what is bad, and we have a chance to reverse it. But here's what blows me away. If you think the IRS harassing and persecuting pro-life groups, Tea Party groups, libertarian groups, Christian groups, we're going to cover this in detail in the next segment with one of our reporters in studio. If you think that's bad, that's nothing compared to what is really going on and what is in the back of the newspaper. Because so much of this stuff is actually available and even admitted in mainstream media, but they put it in the paper or online just buried in headlines. 3 years ago when the attack on Libya started covertly, it was in foreign press that our government and NATO was funding al-Qaeda, bringing him into Benghazi, and that's why Hosni Mubarak was taken out of office, because even though he'd been a Western dictator, he said, I'm not going to put al-Qaeda in charge of Libya, my neighbor. I'm not going to help you. Well, bye-bye Hosni Mubarak. Well, look at the, again, London Telegraph today. It's also in Reuters. Al-Qaeda's Syrian wing takes over the oil fields once belonging to Assad. And the article goes on to say Al-Qaeda is now the main force in Syria, run by NATO, and that Israel is now saying that if there's any more resistance against them, they'll basically intensify bombing. Syria has done nothing. That is Twilight Zone. But notice it's now mainstream news. They even had one of the deputy Mossad chiefs go public a few days ago and say it's a horrible idea to put al-Qaeda in charge of Syria. Now, remember, when you go to the airport, folks, they're going to want to go in your wife's underwear to find bin Laden while they run it. And again, this isn't our whole government. When I say 9/11's an inside job or Benghazi's an inside job, it means criminal elements are working with the most hardcore, radical Muslim extremists out there. And that's why they're so scared of this show. They go, you say that George Bush had the plunger like Wile E. Coyote. No, that's not what I'm saying. George Bush couldn't even read off a teleprompter. but criminal, globalist, multinational elements that have taken over our government. That's what's happened. We're under a globalist soft coup. And now it's gotten to the point where they told Congress 3 times last year that NATO is what gives them orders and the president orders, not Congress. And if you know the Constitution, Bill of Rights history, folks, that's treason. That's real treason. And so it's so frustrating to hear people going, oh, they were auditing Tea Parties? That's horrible. Impeach them. I guess Alex Jones has been right. Folks, that is nothing. We're going to cover this. Look, Obama scoffs at Libya outcry, but vows to act on IRS audit. New York Times, yeah. He wants you to go after that, as bad as it is, because, folks, Libya, there were hundreds of U.S. military in those NATO situation rooms and on those aircraft carriers that saw the 2 drones and the other aircraft and saw the whole 6 to 8 hour event go on there and saw the stand down. Now they're saying, what does it matter where Obama was that night? What does it matter? I've got White House spokesman on ABC. We're going to play the clip coming up going, so what if the law was broken with IRS? That doesn't matter. Hillary Clinton, but why does it matter who killed the ambassador? Why does it matter? What difference does it make?
What difference at this point does it make?
Absolutely. What difference at this point does it make? I mean, you know, next time a cop pulls me over for going 80 miles an hour, I'll go, what difference does it make that I'm speeding? Get about your business. Or, you know, let's say you kill your wife, folks. You beat her over the head with a baseball bat. Cops show up, there's blood everywhere. And they go, who killed her? What difference does it make? Or if a cop shoots some innocent person, how about the cop just says, hey, what difference does it make? I mean, this is ridiculous. And this is their new comeback. What difference does it make if the law was broken? What difference does it make if we got caught shipping guns into Mexico in Fast and Furious? What difference does it make? What difference does it make? And the only thing holding back justice is the Republicans know that if they bring real justice, the Democrats will fire back with all the skeletons they know about, and there'll be a full-on war within the 2 wings of the corrupt system. So they have a lot of reasons in the Republican leadership to not let this go where it should. But let me tell you something. This could get pushed out all the way, and it won't matter what the Republican leadership tries, because if the good Tea Party people that are taking over the Republican Party, that both the Democratic Party and Republican leadership has been demonizing and attacking, there's some really good people in there, folks. I know a lot of them. In fact, a lot of them behind the scenes I talk to who are scared to come on this show, and I don't even really need them on my show, so why do I care? They listen to my show. They get my talking points from research, not made-up garbage. And so I don't even try to get a lot of these congressmen and senators on, but I know they're listening. I know they're listening right now because I talk to them. And they care about their grandkids and their children. And they know I'm telling the truth, and they're smart enough to know history. This thing will destroy all the prosperity and will destroy this country. It either stops now, folks, or there's no turning the corruption back. You're either an anti-corruption system, which you're always battling it, but you keep it small, or you give into it, folks, and you're North Korea, you're Mexico. And I'm not putting down North Korea and Mexico. Most countries in history are run by horrible tyrants because people give into it and then the sky's the limit. Now, David Knight is going to be in here in the next 2 segments getting into the IRS scandal. And then when I start the next hour, I will get to some really amazing clips, some really incredible clips. One of them is, which we've already played, but it dovetails with this, Obama saying, you shouldn't worry about tyranny. That's diametrically opposed to what the Founding Fathers said. And then we're going to dovetail that with Bill Maher Friday night, with Michael Moore saying it's treason to not do what the president wants, to block him. I'm not kidding. Of course, that's the opposite of treason. That's separation of powers, what we're supposed to have, checks and balances. All right, for the balance of the hour, Infowars.com reporter David Knight's going to be with us getting deep into the IRS scandal, playing some clips from the latest hearings on Friday, dealing with the persecution of Christians and Tea Party people and libertarians and pro-gun groups by the IRS. Now, the essence of tyranny is government doing something or ordering something that violates common law, common sense. And the telltale sign of tyranny is when it's an unjust weight and balance, when not only are they oppressing you, but then groups affiliated with them are exempt. It's now in the Associated Press. It's now in mainstream news. We're going to be getting to it. where at the orders of Planned Parenthood, which is really Rockefeller Foundation, that's the real government, they said, go shut down these anti-abortion groups. And I've got headlines here. IRS demanded info on pro-life groups' prayers. That's beyond North Korea. And I heard talk show hosts on Friday going, well, maybe that's reasonable. Maybe you shouldn't pray a prayer against corrupt government. Violation of the First Amendment. The First Amendment says the government has no jurisdiction in your religion. It's been turned around backwards, but they use your ignorance. Here's another one. IRS Commissioner stonewalls on praying and prying into pro-life groups' prayers. IRS to pro-life groups. You know you're going to have to give up this whole protest thing, right? Telling churches you can't go out and protest against whatever it is your religion or your belief says is wrong. This is pure authoritarianism, but as long as you put a peace prize on it, bomb and kill whoever you want, as long as you ban free speech, but hey, it's a black guy, he's liberal. That's why the establishment, the globalists, the foreign banks that have taken over this country put Obama in as a cynical joke, folks. I'm telling you, if Hitler would have worn a pink uniform, he could have killed the entire planet, and people would have given their children to him to kill if he wore a pink uniform. I mean, it's all about the surface of things. And this is the insanity of this. And this IRS thing has really finally clicked with people. But here's the issue. What you're even hearing in the news isn't 1/10 of it. Churches all over America are given letters by the IRS that we've shown and covered where they say, if you go on a picnic with the church, tell people don't talk about politics there. I mean, folks, you have a First Amendment. Your preacher can say whatever they want. This country was founded by the Black Brigades, the preachers. We sell books at InfoWarsStore.com like Romans 13. The true meaning of submission that breaks down there. It's all a fraud, ladies and gentlemen. It was Christians that led the fight in the 1830s, 40s, 50s, 60s against slavery. And that was the law then, and they were against the law. And they went and were involved in civil disobedience. Some Christians, like John Brown, went around and killed people. Now, the issue here is, do you want to be an American or not? Do you have an identity? Or is it just football and acting tough? Because the identity of America is checks and balances. And the churches have become kept creatures of the government, like in the Soviet Union. With their 501c3, they're no longer churches. They are now tax-exempt charities. And that's how the trick was done. Churches, the government still has no regulatory power over, but they trick you. Oh, here's a paper, sign this, waiving your rights. So this is a big deal, and I want to play this clip and then go to David Knight, because here's the question for everybody out there. Obama said just a few weeks ago, don't worry about tyranny, don't believe people that talk about that. And then you see the tyranny all around you, and we're at the critical juncture, because if we don't recognize the tyranny now, when it's gotten so bad, and if we succumb to it, the sky's the limit. So this is kind of the point where America's finally gotten so drunk on corruption, we may throw up and begin reversing where we're going. But if America drinks too much more moonshine or Everclear, we may die of tyranny poisoning, alcohol poisoning. We've reached that point, folks, where even the dumbest people, even the people that have sold themselves out to tyranny and made excuses are going, wow, that sounds like oppression. In Nazi Germany, it started in 1933, 34, 35, going after Christian groups that didn't support Hitler and Jewish groups and others. And people said, well, those are just those minorities. It's okay. And it started out with tax audits and shutting down their businesses. Folks, this is incredible political persecution. This is amazing. And, of course, it was ordered from the highest levels. That's now coming out. David Knight, I want to play this clip of Obama, and we're going to get to your report. We're going to have you a little bit in the next hour here. But here is Obama saying, don't worry about tyranny, because he knew the AP was already sitting on this story, and so were the Republican leadership. It's now come out. That's now come out. They knew a year ago, because they're scared to go this direction. Let's go ahead and go to this clip.
Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. Some of these same voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner. You should reject these voices.
All right, that's enough. Next hour, I'm going to play him saying gumming up the works, and then I have Bill Maher saying it's treason to not do what Obama wants. I mean, whoa! It is treason to not follow the Fuhrer! The Fuhrer will save Germany, but those opposing him are the reason that the Reich is in trouble. Hail Obama! You do not hail Obama, you will be arrested. David Knight, we're going to break in about 4 minutes, but, I mean, how much will we take?
Well, that's a good question, because for a long time, since the 1950s, as you mentioned, the IRS has been intimidating these different churches by turning them into tax-exempt organizations. And there was a thing called the Johnson Amendment that was put in by Lyndon Johnson. And a few years ago, an organization called Alliance Defending Freedom started organizing some pastors. They only had a couple of dozen the first year. And after about 4 years, just this most recent one, this fall, they had 1,500 pastors who basically recorded their sermon, which was politically explicit, explicitly endorsing a candidate, and taped it and sent it to the IRS. This is a growing rebellion. It was just only 500 the year before, and then within 1 year it went from 500 to 1,500. They are intimidating people. That's the way they've handled the churches for a long time, but this is reaching an all-new level when you look at this intimidation of pro-life organizations. This testimony from Representative Aaron
They're now telling them we want to know your prayers and you can't protest.
That's right. This testimony from Representative Aaron Schock, he had a document from the Thomas More Foundation, 150-page report, and it documented the kinds of intimidation that the IRS was using against pro-life organizations. And we've got a clip of that. I don't know if we're ready to play that.
Sure, let's go ahead and play that clip in a moment. But I just want to go back to something here before we go to that. The First Amendment that we're talking about here says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. I mean, I don't agree with people chopping the heads off goats or some groups running around on hallucinogens, but that's their right under their religion. Government has no jurisdiction there.
That's right. The wall of separation was something a term that came up with Thomas Jefferson, and he was reassuring the Danbury Baptist Church that the federal government was not going to be doing anything to their churches. So what he was saying is that there's a wall around the federal government. What they've done is they put that wall around the churches. So the federal government is free to do anything it wants to intimidate anybody in any way they wish. And the churches now are operating inside a wall that gets, Washington said, the British people walk about freely, but it's between high walls. Well, those walls are getting higher and they're getting narrower all the time. And a lot of it is coming from IRS intimidation.
Unbelievable. Let's go ahead and go to the representative's point from Friday. Here it is.
Their question specifically asked from the IRS to the Coalition for Life of Iowa, quote, please detail the content of the members of your organization's prayers. Would that be an appropriate question to a 501c3 applicant? The content of one's prayers.
It pains me to say I can't speak to that one either, but that's an...
You don't know whether or not that would be an appropriate question to ask an applicant?
Speaking outside of this case, which I don't know anything about, it would surprise me that question was asked.
See, and of course it's come out in the Washington Post, you name it, they did do that. And the media's like, hey, that's a good idea. We know what your prayers are. And notice they'll always deny it up on the stand, so there can never be a debate about it, while they, like gangs, show up. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.